The Sega Master System is a console from the 8-bit generation that doesn't get discussed that often. And today, we're going to do just that. We're going to talk about 5 games that you should play on the Sega Master System. But I'm not going to just handle this one myself. No, I've enlisted the help of 4 other YouTubers along with myself to discuss these games. They're from all different regions of the world, so we figured we'd jump right into it with our first video.
Hey, you just said the magic words. Now look what you did. And look, advanced video games for less at Toys R Us. The Sega Master System with 28K of memory, super sharp picture, 64 colors plus game cartridge, and all this, just $129.99. And it plays these thin Sega cards packed with 256K of unlimited game power from $24.99 to $29.99 each. It's the world's biggest toy store. Let's go!
First up, I got a video from my good friend Wes, also known as Nefarious Wes on the YouTubes. He is a fantastic editor, content creator, and contributor to the retro gaming community. And so I wanted to go ahead and spotlight him, who is spotlighting a game that he wanted to talk about, which is Fantasy Zone 2 on the Sega Master System.
One of the best known shooters for the Sega Master System is a colorful and vibrant game, and a tough one, Fantasy Zone. It's a ton of fun, but in my opinion, its sequel, Fantasy Zone 2, The Tears of Opa Opa, surpasses the original in almost every way. Released in the States at the end of 1987, our protagonist, the adorable living ship Opa Opa, returns to Fantasy Zone to eradicate the evil Neon forces, who have since rebounded from the inaugural battle with a new fleet of Adora baddies. Those familiar with the original game are already aware that Fantasy Zone doesn't adhere to the archetypal tropes instilled within the shooter genre back in the 1980s. The horizontal plane in which Opa Opa can maneuver scrolls either to the left or right and loops indefinitely, such as in the arcade classic Defender. Enemy pods must then be destroyed in order to take on the end boss. This being an integral component to Fantasy Zone's gameplay, the mechanic was naturally retained for the sequel, but rather than a single field in which to dispose of pods, Fantasy Zone 2 steps things up a bit, adding warps to send Opa Opa into several other zones within each stage where more enemy pods await. Each level contains at least 3 different sections brimming with pods before concluding with a boss fight. Keeping track of the many warps within each level can be a bit confusing, as it is pretty easy to get lost within Fantasy Zone. Many of the areas within each stage look similar to one another, and missing a single pod, which impedes your ability to tackle the end boss, can be a real pain if you don't know where it is. It's not that bad though. My biggest gripe with the game is the same one that I have with the original: timed special weapons. I can't stand that shit! Special weapons can only be obtained by purchasing them in the many shops littered throughout Fantasy Zone. Money is dropped and then collected when enemies are defeated, giving you much needed coin to upgrade your firepower. The special weapons run on a limited time limit, and once the timer reaches 0, back to the pea shooter for you. Thankfully, there are a few items that stay with you until death, such as speed increases and the auto fire shot, which actually stays with you until game over, even through continues. Yes, continues are sold in shops as well. Just remember to press the button to pick up from where you left off before the title screen returns. Man, how many times did I have to start over because I forgot? Unlike the original though, the shops are always located in the same place and can be entered as needed. There are even hidden shops that are uncovered when Opa shoots in just the right spot. Invaluable items can be found in these, including the red bottle upgrade, which doubles Opa Opa's hit meter. Yeah, you actually have a life bar in this one. Pretty nifty. The price of weapons and items increase with subsequent purchases, so money and item management play a role in this one. Without special weapons and speed power-ups, Fantasy Zone 2 can get pretty challenging, especially in the later levels. They're damn near impossible without power-ups. The game as a whole can be pretty difficult, minus the bosses, who I found to be absolute pushovers. The visuals are even more vibrant than the original, but sadly, the soundtrack isn't nearly as good as its predecessors. The tunes aren't bad, but they're definitely nothing I find myself humming to long after the game has been shut off, but not a game breaker by any means. If you're a fan of shooters, especially cute 'em ups, then this game is hands down a must play. It's so much fun and unique compared to its contemporaries at the time that I feel non-shooter fans would really enjoy Fantasy Zone 2 as well. Give it a shot.
Next up on our list is Big Retro Show. They kind of specialize a little bit in Sega Master System, so I'm really glad that we could bring them on to this collaboration to showcase a review from them. And they have picked the Ninja, so go ahead and take a look and see what it's all about.
Hey, what's up you guys? This is Los from the Big Retro Show, and a big thank you to MichaelBTheGameGenie for including me in this awesome collaboration. Today I'm talking to you guys about the Ninja, one of the earliest games for the Sega Master System. The Ninja is essentially an overhead run-and-gun shooter that involves ninjas, and what's not to love about that, guys? Despite the name, the main character does not look like a traditional ninja you would find in the 80s. The dudes you massacre do though, and that's good enough for me. The Ninja takes place in feudal Japan, and you play as Kazumaru, whose mission is to rescue the unnamed princess against the ninja armies of Gyukoro. You start out in the countryside with an arsenal of darts. You gotta love the Sega Master System with its 2 buttons and its D-pad. One button allows you to shoot forward and strafe. The other button allows you to shoot in 8 directions, much like Commando. If you push both buttons at the same time, you disappear in a cloud of smoke. The enemies are all garbed out in ninja outfits, and some even disguise themselves as rocks, only to pop out while you run by. The game's power-ups consist of scrolls. A red scroll allows you to upgrade your ninja darts to ninja stars. A blue scroll will allow you to run faster, and the green scrolls, which are hidden throughout the game, allow you to find the princess after defeating the head goon. What I love about this game, guys, is the variety of the levels. You fight in grassy areas, feudal castles, mountainsides with big boulders coming after you. There's one stage where you fight in a river and you have to jump from log to log. And there's also a stage where you have to avoid horses who are stampeding at you. The variety of the levels really add to the overall enjoyment of the game. So the other thing about the game, guys, is that it's short and sweet. You can basically beat it in under a half hour. And I love that. Pop the game in, beat it, and play another game. The game is challenging, but anyone can beat it. You have to find the green scrolls if you want to beat the game, but it's pretty easy because they never change their location, and once you find one, it's all about memorization. The other thing about the game is that although it's tempting to just do a rapid fire of ninja stars at your enemies, it's better to take them out using less stars. The darts don't let you do anything but kill the enemies and block ninja stars thrown at you. Once you upgrade the ninja stars, they have the ability to go through your enemies. I always like running around and lining them up just perfectly to kill them all at once. So the other thing about the game that I like, guys, is the music. And although it's a little bit repetitive, it fits well into the whole overall ninja theme of the game. And it also adds to the production value. For these reasons, the Ninja for the Sega Master System is a must-play for the system. Thank you very much, MichaelBTheGameGenie, for including me in this incredible collaboration, and I can't wait to see the other games on the list.
Next up on our list is Hungry Goraya. She is an awesome YouTuber. I love her videos. She has a great channel. Please go check her out. She is doing all kinds of games, a lot of like non-linear adventures, and what better way to showcase one of her reviews than this one. This is Golden Axe Warrior on the Sega Master System. Take a look.
Golden Axe Warrior is a game I fell in love with the first time I laid eyes on it. It's a top-down adventure game with sprite work that's so lovely and vibrant that you might even mistake it for something from the 16-bit generation. Despite having Golden Axe in the title, in terms of its gameplay style, it's nothing like the other games in that series, which are primarily fantasy-themed beat-em-ups. Golden Axe Warrior is linked to the other games with its enemies and character roster, but that's where the similarities end. The story here is exactly what you might expect from a game from this day and age. It's scarce, and you find yourself on a quest to save the world from destruction, in this case at the hands of Death Adder. The only way to intercept his plans is to find the 9 crystals and the Golden Axe, the one legendary weapon fabled to be able to kill him. At a first glance, Golden Axe Warrior looks a lot like The Legend of Zelda for the NES, and in a lot of ways it emulates that wonderful formula very well. In fact, its similarity to Zelda 1 was what drew me to this game to begin with. The core of the gameplay in Golden Axe Warrior revolves around exploring 3 continents to find new equipment and items to help you along your way, as well as locate the entrances to the many labyrinths that contain the crystals. Almost every single screen on the overworld contains some sort of secret to be found by doing things like destroying certain objects or killing all the enemies. The wheels in your head never get to rest for very long because every square on the map is a brand new mystery to crack. Unlike some other open-world action-adventure games where you can walk freely from one end of the world to the other, here you're limited to where you can access at first. In order to reach new areas, you have to find the right item to get around obstacles or open up new pathways. This can make gameplay feel linear at times, but this is far from being a limitation and instead really streamlines the whole experience. In other games, you can stumble into dangerous territory and come face to face with death out of nowhere, but Golden Axe Warrior's world opens up in a controlled way and scales the difficulty up accordingly along with it. This by no means should imply that the game is easy. In fact, encounters with new enemies can require a lot of strategizing to defeat. Thankfully, you have access to multiple melee weapons that vary in strength and range, as well as a few magic spells that give you the benefit of a distance attack option. Something that really sets this game apart from other action-adventure games from this generation is the well-written dialogue. There's nothing worse than getting a hint in a game and having no idea what it means. Despite taking place in a land with swords and shields, this game did away with old-timey English that plagues so many other RPGs, but more importantly, Golden Axe Warrior didn't suffer from translation issues because it never had to be translated from Japanese at all. The only releases of this game were in North America and Europe, so the intent of NPCs is usually pretty clear. And you will do a lot of talking to people in this game. There are a lot of towns to explore, and the advice of their inhabitants will be valuable to furthering your adventure. There are many reasons why this game should be a top choice for anyone wanting to explore the Master System library. In a sea of arcade ports and platformers released for the system, Golden Axe Warrior stands out as a shining beacon among them. It's easy to pick up and play since it builds so well on the solid mechanics established in Zelda 1 and improves on it in just about every aspect. If you're looking for a quest that will challenge you but won't keep you busy with a long grind or trying to decipher cryptic hints for hours, Golden Axe Warrior is the journey for you.
Before I close this out, I wanted to showcase a YouTuber who really isn't around that often. And this is MichaelBTheGameGenie. He is a longtime friend of mine and a great content creator. He puts out some really warm, nostalgic videos. But this one in particular is a review on a game that I don't think he necessarily has a lot of nostalgia for, but I think he really appreciates it on several different levels. So here is MichaelBTheGameGenie checking out Master of Darkness.
Are you the kind of person that likes side-scrolling action platformers? What about ones with a horror or gothic theme that would be perfect to play around the spooky season? Well, if I have piqued your interest, Master of Darkness on the Sega Master System may just be a game that you should consider playing. Master of Darkness is a European-only released Master System game, which is a shame because the system really could have used this release in North America. We did manage to get it on the Game Gear, but for me the Master System version is a much better experience. It was a very overlooked game, not only because it was a European-only release, but it was also released in 1993, which was much later in the Master System's lifespan and in the height of the Genesis popularity. The game draws obvious comparisons to Castlevania because of its gameplay style and theme, so much so that people consider it to be a Castlevania clone. I am not one of those people because, while there is no denying Castlevania inspired this game and certain elements are blatantly ripped off, it does some different things that make the game stand out, but not always in a good way. First of all is the story, which is actually pretty awesome. You play as a Ouija board using psychologist named Dr. Ferdinand Social, who is looking to defeat the Prince of Darkness, Dracula, who is behind a series of killings attributed to Jack the Ripper. See what I mean? While the obvious Castlevania overtones are there, there's also that element where it's almost like a Sherlock Holmes murder mystery game that really tickles my fancy. While the tone has been heavily linked to Castlevania, I would place it more in that dark Jack the Ripper period, and I have really high praise for the graphics and aesthetic of the game. The gameplay is where the game gets the most criticism as being a Castlevania clone, but let's be honest, it's a side-scrolling action platformer, so I mean, they're all kinda like this. The big difference is that the weapons are changeable depending on the power-up that you pick up. You start with a knife that I hate and gives the cane from Jekyll and Hyde a run for its money on most useless weapon ever. Luckily, you can change it out for clubs and swords and other weapons that are more powerful and have a better reach. They also attack with different ranges, which is a really cool touch, but can also be infuriating depending on the type of enemy you are fighting. The sub-weapons are pretty much exactly like Castlevania. You press up and attack to use them, but they have limited use and are only replenished by picking up the power-up again, and not by collecting hearts. Another difference is the power-ups are potions instead of pork chops, found mostly in the masks scattered throughout the levels. See? Totally different. Nope, never mind. I just found one by breaking a wall, so it's basically exactly the same. The game controls really well, but not as tight as Castlevania. The only really good benefit of not having the exact same controls and mechanics is no crazy knockback deaths, but I'm not saying it doesn't have cheap deaths either. The bad enemies have crazy patterns, and it's going to take a while to get used to terminating them and learning how to avoid or attack them. It can be really frustrating and makes the birds and ghosts in A Nightmare on Elm Street seem like a Goomba from Mario. The stage design is where I really see the comparisons to Castlevania. While I can argue the aesthetic is different, those stairs and the way the levels are laid out scream Castlevania to me. One benefit is that unlike Castlevania, you can jump while you are on the stairs, which is a breath of fresh air. Also, the levels don't lock, so if you climb a section and fall back down, it doesn't result into an instant pit death and gives you an opportunity to climb back up. Overall, I think Master of Darkness is a pretty great game, albeit a Castlevania-like experience on the Sega Master System. It's not the best action platformer ever made, nor would I rank it near the top of the Castlevania series, but it's good enough that it merits everybody give it a chance. Master of Darkness is a unique and fun platformer on the Sega Master System that should bring you to experience the console for yourself.
I figured I'd close out this compilation with a game that's exclusive to the PAL territory, and it comes from a very famous franchise. It's actually Ninja Gaiden. So let's take a look at the Sega Master System version of Ninja Gaiden from yours truly. Some of the best Master System games never made it to North American shores in the form of a proper release. One of the best known examples of this is Ninja Gaiden. Released exclusively in PAL territories in 1992, this game was developed by Sims, a subsidiary of Sega at the time. Obviously licensed from Tecmo, the character of Ryu Hayabusa ends up heading back to Japan for a storyline that takes place entirely in his motherland, which is a big shift from the mostly South American and North American journeys that he has faced. Ninja Gaiden, similar to the more famous NES trilogy, has Ryu running, slashing, and jumping his way through 6 stages. While there are cutscenes that try to link the storyline together, the storyline and dialogue aren't written as well as the Nintendo titles. Ryu just gets passed from one task to the next. Though overall, it's always refreshing to see these types of cutscenes in an action game such as this. Ryu returns to his home being burned to the ground and his people murdered. He goes after the culprits on a quest of revenge and to find an item taken from them, the Bushido Scroll. Complementing some entertaining cutscenes are gorgeous graphics that, while not as intricately detailed as the Nintendo's trilogy of Ninja Gaiden games, is still impressive thanks to a wider color palette on the console. My favorite in particular was the bamboo forest with the green background standing out as you jump from platform to platform. There's extra attacks that Ryu can acquire, like the Fire Wheel, larger shuriken, 4-way shurikens, and homing attack. You can also press both the 1 and 2 buttons to drain a bit of your own life, but the purpose of this is to clear the screen of basic enemies. I found this a bit awkward at times, and occasionally performed it in error, but the hit on your life bar isn't too bad. Enemies are generally weaker in this game than in the NES trilogy, though those damn flying birds make a comeback. Most of my deaths were due to my biggest complaint on this game, screen scrolling. In most action games, you have a second or two to shift your perspective so you know how to approach each situation, but when you move to the next room in this game, you could immediately walk into a pit that you didn't know was there, or an enemy might be right where you end up and knock you back. Luckily, you can walk backwards to the previous screen, but because the movement is so fluid, it ends up being jarring due to cheap level design and enemy placement. I can appreciate repetitive game music, but Ninja Gaiden's music loops are just too short and they cause the songs to sound more repetitive than what we're used to with this series. I still felt the quality of the songs themselves were great, I just wish the loops were a bit more varied. Sound effects are competent, but pale in comparison to what we're used to on the NES. Despite this, I thought Ninja Gaiden was a really fun and different take on the series than most of us NES kids grew up on. Ryu Hayabusa bounces off walls with the press of a button. Instead of grip and stick, he kicks and flips off. This new method of travel really felt like it flowed better at times than the stiff and rigid sticking to walls mechanics of the first Ninja Gaiden, and even the second title too, which is one of my favorite games of all time. Though hanging on ledges in various parts of the level were also something that you can do in the third entry. I applaud Sega for trying something new with a property that wasn't theirs, and I'd encourage all Master System collectors to hunt this one down, as it's one of the best action platformers on the console. Well guys, that's going to do it for the 5 Sega Master System games that you should check out, but if you have a suggestion for a different game, let us know in the comments below. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel and hit that like button as well. Keep the likes coming. Also, if you can, do me a favor and check out the channels down below for the people that helped me put this video together. We really appreciate all the hard work and effort that they've done on their channels. They are great content creators and you should really go check them out. So go subscribe to their channels and go through their back catalog and, maybe check out some of their future videos as well. As always guys, thanks so much for watching and stay tuned for more on the channel.